Hello my friends and welcome. As I promised to you, the full video was released with kaboom of many of the airplanes on the Russian airfields. Now we'll see more of the action. I'm going to dedicate to this specific topic. We're gonna discuss of what actually Russia lost out there, with obviously video evidence, and you may see already two of the Russian AVAX airplanes, A-50. One is here, the other one is a little further. Well, let's go from the very start of the video, which was released by Ukrainian SBU today, and also I guess I need to get my image a little smaller. Yeah, just like that, move to the left, the small icon for you to see more of the stuff. The Special Operation Spiderweb, how SBU burned down the Russian strategic aviation, and not only strategic aviation. Let's watch it. The video starts from this one. You may see Tupolev 95 with some of the tires on top. This is the new video, it wasn't released before, and the drone is flying towards the central part. Will it miss it? I guess maybe it missed. Yeah, it went. This is the specific airplane, particular one, and here just in the bottom you may see Ha-101 cruise missile, very capable by the way. Those missiles Russia uses to target Ukrainian civilian and other infrastructure in their airstrike. So it was the main aim for Ukraine to eliminate those specific carriers, mostly Tupolev 95. And yeah, I heard in Russian media that they say, oh, those are the tires on the wings, it means that those airplanes are not flying. But if you see that missile, it means that they are serviceable and they were on a mission before. So the other drone went to a specific spot. Here you can see the missile underneath, and probably it hit the tire, I guess, or under the wing construction. The third drone, maybe this particular aircraft, it could be many other airplanes. Yeah, many others. You can see they're burning on the left. This is the row of the airplanes. To the wing, because there are some of the fuel tanks in the wing, and here we go with a big kaboom. Immediately, as you may see, wing even separated. The launcher and the main force element was cut by this huge kaboom. Wow, what a show. And one more airplane, you can see it here, and one more airplane. Let me see here, the airplane was hit through the roof, so it is already unserviceable, my friends. With those kind of the damages, it will not fly, maybe even forever. To repair those damages, well, you need to have overhaul. You need to separate the wings, put the fuselage on a very hard maintenance, and I wonder if Russia still has those technologies to put new force elements into those ancient, actually, airplanes. Ancient, but they were very important for Russia. Let's go next. Yeah, one more hole, you can see it here. Yes, several drones hit many of the airplanes. So on satellite images, sometimes you may see that airplanes are sometimes okay, they're not burned down, but it doesn't mean that they were not hit by FPV drones. And if we may calculate all of the airplanes from those kind of videos, from satellite images, definitely the number could be close to 41 airplanes hit, as Ukrainian officials are saying. Here is the wing, and here we go with Tupolev 22M3 modification, also some of the tires on the top, and here we go with a drone strike, I guess from the top, because they have that central fuel tank as well, so not just in the wings. The wings here are empty, actually only in the central part of the wing there are some of the fuel tanks, as well as in the central part of the fuselage. This aircraft is a little different, but the drones hit right in the proper spot, and those tires, those didn't help at all. So here we have the drone coming, and yeah, probably it missed here. And this is Antonov 12, the transport airplane of the Russian aviation. I guess the drone operators hit elsewhere. They obtained the information about the airplane's hit, and probably they try, yeah, obviously Antonov 12. Even my grandpa was flying this aircraft. That is how old it really is, similar to C-130. And it was also hit in its central part, as you may see. Everything is burning out there. And here in the first video we were speaking about the Alenia airfield, where Russia lost at least 4 of the Tupolev 95 airplanes and more Tupolev 222M3. Also Antonov 12 was kaputted there. And yeah guys, in this video I want to tell you about the ground news. Every morning I check the news from this platform, news aggregator. You may see Ukraine hits Crimean bridge pillars. I've told you about yesterday, but initially I got this information from this source, and 258 news agencies report about it. So here you may find bias distribution, factuality check. Since we have the video evidence, yeah, the information is legit, and many sources report about it. The main thing that you have the ownership of the media. So for example, the government of Canada owns CBC News, factuality report very high for this particular news. And you may check not just the Ukrainian topic but many others. The Ground News is not the big media corporation, but they rely on our subscriptions. That is why I was subscribed for them even before we became partners with them, and they really helped me a lot maintaining the job that I do on my channel. Yeah, you guys help me with your kind support on many of the platforms, but with their partnership, sponsorship, you may call it like that, they keep me running as well. Yeah, actually I'm proud to have them being on my channel and to make integrations with them. That's why guys, I highly recommend you to check out my personal link in the video description just below. It's ground.news/Dennis, where you may subscribe for the Ground News with 40% of discount. I personally subscribe for the Vantage plan to have the full access for all of the platform features, and I recommend it for you as well, but nevertheless you can go to the link and check it for free how it works and the features that you might like of this Ground News platform. Ground News, thank you so much for sponsoring this video and my channel. And here we go with A-50 Russian AVAX, which I showed you at the beginning of the video. Obviously the most precious thing on those airplanes is their radar. Russia cannot produce those any longer. Yeah, Russia has many of the Ilyushin-76 airplanes, the base for A-50 modification, but still the radar is the most important stuff. I was asked the question of how many A-50 Russia has. Well, roughly 3 flying and 2 staying on the ground. 2, I mean those 2. Yeah, unfortunately guys, those A-50 airplanes were unserviceable. We may judge it because the engines are absent. So here, hopefully you can see, yeah, hopefully I'm not blocking the image for you. So no engines here, just those radars on the top. But nevertheless, those being hit by Ukraine. So Russia cannot restore them any longer. Also, I guess some ailerons are absent here and flaps on the other airplane. But this is the most important thing, the radar, rusty one but still serviceable. I mean, Russia could lift those airplanes up potentially with some of the finances, but not any longer. Russia lost 2 A-50 airplanes, so just 3 remaining. Let's see it once again, boom. So I wonder if the detonation was there or not, and yeah, the other drone hit the different airplane here. It was probably the detonation. Well, just yesterday I showed you this satellite image, and here we have A-50 airplane. Probably the one that we saw in the video. It was towed somewhere, and it looks like the radar has some of the burns, but definitely it's hard to judge. Maybe Ukraine hit one more A-50, but I'm not sure about it, probably not. And I guess for Russia, after all, those airplanes were very important because they use lots of the tires to protect the fuel tanks. You may see on the top they put lots, like record number of the tires. Usually they put those occasionally, like on Tupolev 95, but here is the other story. By the way, the other aircraft also has some of the tires there. Also other protection. What did they put there? Some of the bags with the sand? I wonder, just wonder. So Russians understand their weak spot and they try to protect their airplanes as hard as they can, judging on the resources they have, and they simply are out of the resources. I'm gonna tell you more in this video about the current situation of the Russian Air Force and why they cannot prevent those attacks from happening. Alright, the next we go with Tupolev 222 M3 again, and they put lots of the tires on top of this one protecting the fuel tanks, but it didn't work. Even with this kind of the damage, this airplane is unserviceable, my friends. Here's the other drone probably going to the same target. The signal is lost, unfortunately. One more drone and it misses, unfortunately. Yeah, it hit just on the side. And one more. Yeah, sometimes you see the signal is weak. The Russians didn't use the electronic warfare, but it's definitely hard sometimes to control the drone at those very low altitude. The signal could be broken by itself. And now you may say a different weather. This is the Bela airfield. Russia also lost many of the airplanes there, Tupolev Tu-22 M3, way less of the tires on top compared to the previous airfield. The local commanders decided to do it like that, and vertically drone flies into the plane. Some of the planes are burning far away, and here you can see more Tupolev 22. Tupolev 22 is not like fully strategic bomber because of its range. It was mainly done and created, designed to fight against the United States or Western in general air carrier groups. Yeah, it's the carrier killer as Russians call them. And here we have, oh, this airplane is not protected at all. Very strange. And here we go with the drone. It hit the airplane right from the top. Maybe Russians are running out of tires, but this airplane, well, it looks like serviceable, especially if you have those ladders nearby. Oh, I say they just removed those tires because the airplanes were flying recently and launching some of the cruise missiles on Ukraine. Well, not any longer. Or maybe they were preparing for the future flights, and yeah, Russia lost many of the Tupolev Tu-22 M3. The airplanes which were designed to fight against NATO, and Ukraine actually did a very great offer for NATO, demolishing all of those. Just look at this picture. Wow, that's crazy. That's absolutely insane, my friends. What a view. Through the smoke, drones are flying. Yeah, you can see lots of the airplanes. Tupolev 95. Here we go. Russia cannot produce those engines also. They cannot also. Wow. I mean, the way it looks, it's fantastic, but it brings, unfortunately, terror of Russia elsewhere, including Ukraine, and that's the proper action to do with those airplanes in this case, to kaput them with the help of the FPV drones right on top of the wing. Probably wheels or tires were removed because this airplane was recently flying or was prepared for the flight. Wow. That's huge. That's really huge. What is burning there? Tupolev 95 or what? It's crazy, guys. It's totally crazy, but yeah, Russia totally deserves that stuff. This image is definitely outstanding. Tupolev 22 is burning. Wow, fantastic image presented to us by SBU, the Service of the Security of Ukraine. If you translate that into English, yeah, we have all of those strikes, but not entirely. There's still at least 2 of the airfields, and I'm waiting for more videos coming, and obviously I'm gonna tell you about it. So what now Russia tries to do, that it wants to hide the circumstances of the drone attack. For example, here you can see the satellite image. This Tupolev 95 was completely destroyed, this one also, and Russia took out the debris, so it was the previous satellite image, and Russia replaced the debris with this airplane that wasn't really hit. And maybe after that replacement, Russian generals will show to Putin that not many airplanes were hit. Just look at this. We lost 1, maybe 2, maybe that's the idea of the Russian general commanders. And since Putin is not checking anything on internet, he doesn't have the internet access, he would believe his generals and reporters. But in fact, Russia lost many. This is Bela base, so those are the remains of Tupolev Tu-22, and those are 3 Tupolev 95 airplanes, and here Russia put the undamaged airplane on the place. In Alenia Air Base, I would say everything is even worse for Russia. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 airplanes in a row were totally erased. We saw it on the video. About Tupolev 160, I still don't have the confirmation, even though Ukrainian officials told about it, that at least one of the airplane was cancelled, but I'm still waiting for reliable evidence, like we saw today with all of those strikes. Yeah, new more detailed satellite images, they're just fantastic. Russia lost, like, the loss of a single strategic bomber is the severe hit on Russian aviation, Russian Air Force, but the loss of everything of that, guys, it's unimaginable even. So guys, according to this recent footage that was released, I may tell you about the total losses spotted on the video. The FPV drones hit 22 of the Russian airplanes, including 7 Tupolev 95 airplanes, strategic bombers, 12 Tupolev Tu-22M3, 2 A-50S airplanes, but they were not serviceable. At least the base of those airplanes, Solution 76, stayed without engines, ailerons and partially flaps, but still antennas are the most sensitive and important part of those, and 1 Antonov 12 cargo airplane. Some experts analyzed the satellite images, saying that not 7 but 8 of the Tupolev 95 airplanes were hit. And yeah, many more airplanes could be hit but not destroyed completely. However, they are no longer airworthy. And yeah, I'm still waiting for more images to come. And yeah, guys, the attack on those Tupolevs is awesome, because definitely they were used by Russia. Those missiles are Ha-101 100%. Oh my god, after so many days we have the reaction from Putin. It was just released while I am filming this video. So let me tell you what he is speaking about. At first I need to listen. Alright, I listened to that stuff, and Putin calls those attacks as terror attacks from Ukrainian not legitimate regime. Yeah, just recall the night before those strikes, or in the same day in the morning, there were a couple of the bridges which were kaboomed in Kursk and Belgorod oblasts of Russia. There were some of the train accidents. I guess Russia did it itself, to blame Kiev regime, as they say, for those terror attacks. But de facto, no, Ukraine was not involved there, and events which happened later with the Russian bombers shadowed those kind of the attacks. But Putin here also emphasized not just the Ukrainian attack on the airfields, but those 2 of the cases with the Russian bridges and Russian trains. And he also stated here that the ceasefire which Ukraine proposes will be used by the Kiev regime to get more weaponry from the Western allies and to reinforce the defense of Ukraine. So again, Putin says openly that he is not interested in finishing the war, or at least in a ceasefire. Plus, he still calls the Ukrainian president, Ukrainian government as not legitimate. The only legitimate government for Russia is the Russian one, or pro-Russian. What is interesting that Putin didn't came out with like address to people after the attack. He commented about the strikes during the conference with some of the Russian officials. That's it. I wonder if the head of the FSB Bortnikov was presented there, because he is actually responsible for stopping those kind of the cases to happen on territory of Russia. He is the head of FSB, because I've told you, he is a good, loyal friend of Putin. So judging on those entire Putin's comments, we understand that Putin didn't change since the start of the full-scale war in 2022. He really determined to achieve his so-called goals of demilitarization and occupation of Ukraine. He's completely out of reality. He says that Russia is pushing Ukraine hard on the front lines. Yeah, Russia started the Sumo operation. Russia takes the ground in the east, but compared to their losses, compared to what Russia is losing in general in this war, it is nothing. They take the ground, but they ruin entire infrastructure. Every building, every village is gone. But Russians call it a liberation. And the perspective for the Russian achievements in Ukraine in general, it's absolutely absent. The fight isn't going for every street, for every small village, for every building. The ratio of how they move is absolutely no-go, whether Russia likes it or not. But after all, the Western sanctions are working, and the Russian economy is suffering little by little, but it is. And China plus some of the other countries like India too, they're saving the Russian economy. They're purchasing their fossil fuels for kind of the low price now, but in the long perspective, Russia will not be able to afford this war, my friends. And Russian regime itself, it starts to crack, and I already see it. I see it from the reaction of Z community, for example. They're astonishing still about Ukrainian strike on their bombers. I'll read you out the statement of one of the Russian military bloggers affiliated with Russian Air Force, fighter bomber or something like that. From the Airspace Forces High Command, if anyone is, because of yesterday's events. Yeah, he wrote it a couple of days ago. But objectively, if all three are dismissed, three commanders, everyone will say thank you. Okay, not everyone, I will say thank you. But again, to be objective, we have to understand that the High Command in the current situation couldn't have done anything. The Airspace Forces High Command can't even get enough proper Panzer I-S systems to guard combat airfields, which are under their own command, so not enough air defense systems. They do not allocate money for shelters, they don't have any. They're not the ones who screwed up the fences. They're not the ones forced to operate from unfinished and unprepared airfields. And they're not the ones who handled all of their personnel to become space paratroopers. Probably he means that lots of the aviation personnel is now fighting on the front lines. They were taken to the front lines. Even the damn tires covering the airplanes were introduced out of desperation. Poverty and the lack of night vision, thermal scopes, machine guns, searchlights, nets, shelters, etc. etc. They manage what they have, what they are given. The command of the airspace forces has no real weight in Ministry of Defense. The last and the only command of the chief of the airspace forces in past 25 years who had actual influence and authority was Surovikin. They're certainly worthy and good commanders, but everyone wants them not in top positions. Yeah, that's the feature I told you, and actually Russians are shocked now that, for example, Magyar is being promoted as the commander of the drone army of Ukraine, entire drone army, starting from volunteer position as the usual drone operator. Magyar became one of the main commanders, so lifts are working in Ukrainian army. If you are talented and if you show that you're ready to improve not just yourself, not just your unit, but army, go ahead. In Russia, it's not possible. That's why Russians are very angry about their own army. They're old Soviet KGB grandpas on the top, and they just like each other there. They don't want anyone to go into their team to command. No, they're incompetent themselves, and they don't like those who are competent. They tried it with Surovikin, but Putin's scared of Surovikin. He's unstable, even though he's kind of talented. He created those Surovikin defense lines, but in a way he supported Prigozhin, so he became an outcast. And again, this guy says that we are waiting to see which direction changes go. Changes in Russia? There are no changes, and they're not possible, no matter what happens in Russia. Putin is unable to change, and the system he created, that's the main reason, actually, will be the main one for the Russian collapse. Or for Putin to be just gone. Yeah, there could be some of them. Military coup. Again, this situation is just awaits for a new leader like Prigozhin, who would rise from the Russian army, actually, who would say that Putin is not doing it properly, we need to fight in another way. And that someone who would have some respect from Russians, he would go to Moscow again and he would not turn. He will not repeat Prigozhin's mistakes, because we already see what might happen in this case. It's just a matter of time, my friends, and Putin does everything possible to collapse Russia, as we see with his reaction. Well guys, I hope you enjoyed this video and watching those kind of direct airplanes on the Russian airfields. It's fantastic, guys. This week is very positive for us, and tomorrow I'm gonna come out with a regular update from the front lines. There, yeah, Russia has the advantage, but Ukraine sometimes also may counter-strike inside the Russian territory, and I'm gonna tell you about it later. Tomorrow. See you guys, I hope you enjoyed this video, and don't forget to check out my personal link for the ground news. Ground news really supports this channel, so thank you so much guys by clicking their link. I wish you all a peaceful sky wherever you are, and have a great time.